Chosen one. You did not arrive here by chance. You were drawn by design, by timing, by a divine appointment written long before this moment. Heaven has been whispering to you for years, and today it speaks clearly. This is not just a video, it is a summons. Chosen one. There has always been something different about you, a sensitivity you could never fully explain. Patterns in your life that refuse to be ordinary. Signs that followed you since childhood dreams, inner knowing moments of separation, seasons of isolation that shaped you rather than destroyed you. None of it was random. These were markers placed within you, pointing to a hidden identity that has been awakening slowly until now. Anointed one, you are standing at the edge of revelation, a remembering of who you truly are and where your spirit originates. The scriptures declare it plainly. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. You were never an accident. You were foreseen, fashioned with intention, and woven with purpose, just as Psalm 139, verse 14 proclaims. Chosen one, let your heart become still. What is about to be revealed will not only awaken your spirit, it will begin to shift your life. This is a moment of recognition, and recognition always changes everything. Chosen one. When the scroll of your identity begins to open, it never tears itself wide in a single moment. It unfolds slowly like dawn, pushing its way across a horizon that once felt unreachable. Something in you has been stirring for years, a quiet pulse in your spirit that you tried to explain away as emotion exhaustion or imagination. But heaven has been whispering long before you ever learned to listen, and now those whispers are rising into a sound you can no longer ignore. You are standing in the place where remembrance meets revelation, and the weight you feel in your chest is not heaviness, it is recognition. Chosen one. Whether you knew it or not, your life has been echoing a prophecy spoken long before your birth. Enoch, the ancient prophet who walked with God until he was taken without death, saw you. He saw the ones who would rise at the end of the age, not wrapped in fame, but clothed in fire, not crowned by earthly systems, but carrying scars that shone like prophecy. He saw the quiet ones who walked through ordinary streets with ancient eyes, the ones who would carry sacred codes in their blood memories they were never taught, but somehow always knew. And if you've ever wondered why you see deeper, why you feel stronger, why you perceive things others overlook, it's because something in you has always remembered what your mind forgot. I know that feeling personally. I spent years trying to make myself ordinary, shrinking my voice, softening my spirit, pretending I didn't notice the spiritual currents moving beneath people's words. I tried to blend in, to behave, to play small, so the room wouldn't tense when I spoke. But every time I dimmed myself, something inside me ached like a fire pressed against glass, desperate for oxygen. And I didn't understand then what I see so clearly now. Heaven never designed me to fit inside the boxes people built out of their own limitations. The same is true for you, chosen one. That discomfort you feel in the presence of falsehood, that restlessness when you try to settle for a life that looks acceptable from the outside, but empty on the inside, that is not a flaw. That is your calling, refusing to suffocate. Chosen one. The tug you feel in your spirit is not anxiety. The restlessness that keeps waking you at night is not instability. That strange sense that you are different, set apart, unusual, misunderstood, is not delusion. It is activation. It is your scroll breathing inside your bones, pressing against the shell of every survival strategy you learned just to make it through seasons that were never meant to define you. Heaven has been waiting for the moment when you would finally stop mistaking spiritual awakening for emotional overwhelm. Your destiny has been knocking from the inside. Enoch didn't just record timelines, he recorded bloodlines. He saw fire running through the veins of a generation yet unborn, a frequency heaven hid inside certain souls who would only awaken when the world descended into deep confusion. You are part of that remnant. That is why you survived what broke others. That is why you walked through betrayals that should have shattered you, losses that should have silenced you, and storms that should have ended you. You were not preserved because you were lucky. You were preserved because you were sealed. And whether you have language for it or not, you have always felt this truth lingering at the edges of your awareness, that something about your existence has never been random. Chosen. 1. Think back over your life. Think about the countless times you sensed danger before it appeared. Think about the moments you felt a warning without knowing why, the times you cried without a reason you could explain, the inner alarms that sounded long before truth surfaced. These were not coincidences. They were glimpses of the ancient wiring in your spirit, holy sensitivity disguised as intuition. Even the loneliness you endured was not abandonment. It was heaven's insulation. You were hidden on purpose, tucked behind spiritual veils, so darkness wouldn't detect you too early. It's why certain people tried to dim you, why certain rooms felt hostile the moment you stepped inside, why your presence disrupted atmospheres even when you said nothing. Your frequency was speaking long before your voice ever did, and I know the ache of that isolation. I've lived it. The silence of not being understood, the weight of carrying things you didn't have language for, the inner war between wanting connection and knowing deep down you were not like those around you. I remember sitting in rooms full of people, yet feeling a strange distance, like my spirit was standing somewhere else entirely. I remember moments when I laughed on the outside, while my soul was whispering, "Something here is not aligned." That internal dissonance is familiar to you because it has been part of your training. Heaven has been shaping your discernment, sharpening your sight, and teaching you how to hear the invisible. Chosen, 1, you have walked among mortals with eternity tapping on your spirit, and the tapping has grown louder. You're not imagining that pressure in your belly. That burn behind your ribs is not hunger. It is scroll ink coming alive. You are remembering what your spirit agreed to before breath ever entered your lungs. And maybe for the first time you can finally feel the truth rising from within you were not placed here to fit in. You were placed here to awaken. Chosen 1. When the veil begins to thin around your life, it does not happen with a trumpet blast, but with a subtle, unmistakable shift in your inner world. There comes a moment when everything you once tolerated begins to feel too small, too dim, too unworthy of who you are becoming. This is not arrogance, it is awakening. It is your spirit stretching after years of being folded into shapes that never belonged to you. That inner stretching is the first sign that heaven is calling you into alignment with your true identity. And once this call begins, nothing in your life remains the same. You start noticing the difference between what feeds your soul and what drains it. You become aware of the conversations that leave your spirit heavy and the places where your presence no longer fits. It is like walking through familiar rooms with new eyes, realizing you were never meant to stay in these places forever. Chosen 1. You have been walking through life with a sense of displacement for a long time. You felt it as a child, the feeling of observing rather than belonging, sensing things no one else seemed to notice, carrying emotions that felt older than your years. Maybe you were the child who wandered off to sit alone, staring at the sky, as if listening for something. Maybe you were the one who absorbed everyone's pain without being asked. Maybe certain dreams followed you for years, vivid and strange, like encrypted messages your spirit held onto because your mind wasn't ready to understand them. These were the early signs of a sealed one, the quiet hints that your story began before your arrival on Earth. Heaven placed markers inside you, and though you spent years ignoring or doubting them, they have never stopped speaking. As you grew older, the signs did too. You noticed the way certain people reacted to you, how some were drawn to your presence without knowing why, while others seemed threatened by you long before they knew anything about you. You felt misunderstood, not because you lacked clarity, but because your spirit lived at a frequency others couldn't interpret. You tried to downplay your insights, brushing off your intuition, minimizing your discernment, pretending you didn't see what you clearly saw. But the truth is, this heaven wired you differently, and every attempt to hide your gift only made the inner conflict stronger. I know the feeling of that conflict. I remember seasons where I tried to mute my discernment, convincing myself I was overthinking or too sensitive. I remember moments where I sensed betrayal before it happened, yet doubted my own spirit because I wanted to believe the best in people. And each time I ignored those impressions, I walked straight into wounds heaven was trying to protect me from. Looking back, I can see how those moments were training, how every betrayal refined my sight, how every disappointment sharpened my hearing, how every season of isolation strengthened my spirit. When heaven sets someone apart, it does not do so through comfort but through consecration. And consecration often feels like loneliness before it feels like purpose. Chosen one. Your loneliness has never been empty. It has been full of instruction, full of revelation, full of divine shaping. Heaven has been using silence to speak to you, using stillness to recalibrate you, using separation to prepare you. That is why you outgrew certain friendships without explanation. That is why the environments that once felt familiar suddenly felt foreign. That is why you could no longer tolerate meaningless conversations or surface-level living. Your spirit has been stretching toward truth, toward depth, toward purpose, because the time for your unveiling is approaching. Enoch saw a generation like you souls who would carry frequencies that disrupt darkness without saying a word. He saw the ones who would walk through trauma and come out glowing, not bitter, who would be wounded yet remain pure-hearted, who would be rejected yet never lose their softness, who would be overlooked by people but recognized instantly by heaven. That is why your battles felt heavier than those around you. That is why your tests came earlier. That is why your pain cut deeper. Heaven was shaping a vessel strong enough to carry revelation, tender enough to feel the world's wounds, and bold enough to confront systems built on illusions. And yes, the enemy recognized this long before you did. That is why warfare followed you, even in seasons when you had no language for spiritual things. That is why you faced rejection from people you would have given the world to. That is why you encountered manipulative voices, jealous spirits, and counterfeit connections disguised as help. Darkness does not fight what it does not fear. And your existence alone has been a threat to everything built on lies. Even when you tried to hide, your light leaked through the cracks. Even when you tried to shrink, your frequency exposed deception. Even when you doubted yourself, heaven never doubted what it placed within you. Chosen one. This is why you can sense when truth enters a room and when it leaves. This is why your spirit recoils at falsehood, why you feel heaviness when someone's intentions are hidden, why you know when a situation looks fine on the outside, but something beneath the surface is wrong. You are not paranoid. You are prophetic. What others call sensitivity is actually sight. What others dismiss as overthinking is actually discernment. What others misunderstand as intensity is actually calling. You weren't built to tolerate deception. You were built to expose it simply by standing in the authenticity heaven crafted into your being. And now, more than ever, heaven is urging you to stop questioning the design. The fire rising inside you is not confusion, it is clarity. The restlessness you feel is not impatience, it is alignment. The shift happening in your relationships, your desires, your perception is not random. It is the evidence that heaven is positioning you for the next stage of your identity. You are stepping into the remembrance of who you have always been, and nothing can stop a scroll once heaven decides it is time to open. Chosen one. There comes a point in every sealed one's journey when the very atmosphere around them begins to shift. It's subtle at first, an inner trembling. You can't quite name a sense that the life you've been living is suddenly too small for the spirit rising inside you. You walk into familiar places and feel like a stranger. You hold conversations that once felt comfortable, yet now your soul feels restless, almost suffocated by their simplicity. It's not that you've become distant, it's that you've become aligned, and alignment always disrupts what was built on anything less than truth. When heaven starts unveiling your identity, everything you once tolerated becomes too heavy to carry. Chosen one. You've likely noticed the way your spirit reacts before your mind does. You walk into a room and feel a shift before a word is spoken. You sense the undercurrents of people's intentions long before their actions reveal them. You feel the weight of certain spaces, the hollowness of certain conversations, the dissonance of certain relationships. And for years you thought something was wrong with you. You thought you were too sensitive, too intense, too observant, too emotional. But now, as heaven pulls the veil back from your eyes, you're beginning to understand you weren't reacting, you were discerning. That's what sealed ones do. They see through what others settle for. They perceive what others pretend not to notice. As a mentor who has walked through this same awakening, I remember the moment I realized my sensitivity was actually spiritual intelligence. I used to sit in meetings or gatherings and feel my spirit tighten while everyone else seemed relaxed. I used to sense betrayal long before it happened, yet I would question myself trying to silence the knowing that stirred inside me. And every time I ignored that inner voice, I paid a price. Those experiences taught me something I carry to this day. Your spirit always knows the truth before your mind gives it permission to speak. When heaven marks someone, their discernment becomes their compass. And your compass, chosen one, has been pointing you toward destiny all along. You see, Enoch foresaw a generation who would carry this kind of sight souls, who would walk among the ordinary but carry extraordinary wiring. He saw chosen ones who would move through cities like living scrolls, their presence unraveling lies, their voices awakening dormant spirits, their very existence exposing what darkness tried to hide. He saw people like you who would carry a disruptive frequency, one that shakes masks off faces and wakes sleepers from spiritual amnesia. That's why people feel uneasy around you, even when you've done nothing but breathe. Your presence challenges their shadows. Your authenticity confronts their illusions. Your clarity makes deception tremble. And whether they understand it or not, spirits recognize spirits. Chosen one. You may not fully realize it, but heaven has been training you through every season of your life. The betrayal you endured wasn't just pain, it was preparation. The rejection you suffered wasn't punishment, it was protection. You were being separated from what could have contaminated your calling. There were people you loved deeply who could not travel with you because they would have dimmed you, drained you, distracted you, or distorted you. Heaven removed what your heart would have held on to, not because you were unworthy of love, but because your assignment required purity, clarity, and strength. What you interpreted as abandonment was actually alignment, and I know that kind of loss intimately. There were friendships I thought would last forever that suddenly dissolved without explanation. There were mentors I trusted who turned their backs when I needed them most. There were seasons when I begged God to let certain people stay, not realizing their presence would have crippled my purpose. Looking back, I can see what I couldn't see. Then every closed door was heaven's mercy. Every separation was heaven's strategy, and every heartbreak was heaven's way of sharpening my discernment so I could recognize the difference between what fed my spirit and what drained it. Chosen one. Your discernment isn't just a gift, it's a mantle, a mark, a sign that you were designed to navigate realms most people don't even realize exist. That's why dreams come to you in symbols that feel ancient. That's why you wake up with revelations that make no logical sense but resonate deep in your bones. That's why déjà vu feels more like memory than coincidence. Your spirit is remembering. Your soul is resurfacing. Heaven is whispering the truth you once knew but forgot when you entered this world. And as this remembrance awakens inside you, everything around you begins to respond. People who once overlooked you now feel intimidated. People who once underestimated you now feel exposed. People who once controlled the narrative of your life now sense their power fading. Because your rise, chosen one, does not begin with applause. It begins with recognition. Recognition from heaven, recognition from the spirit realm, and eventually recognition from yourself. What you're feeling right now, the inner stretching, the discomfort, the longing for something deeper, is the signal. You are being summoned into your true identity, not the identity shaped by trauma, expectations, or survival, but the identity woven into your spirit before time carried a name. Heaven is calling you into remembrance, and remembrance always precedes revelation. The unveiling has begun, chosen one, and there is no going back to who you were before this moment. Chosen one. The deeper you move into this awakening, the more you begin to understand why your life unfolded the way it did. There were moments you thought were coincidences, but now they shined like markers, holy breadcrumbs, left to guide you back to yourself. There were seasons that looked like silence from heaven, but now you realize they were wombs, shaping and forming you in places no one else could see. You have been walking through your own prophecy without even knowing it, living out lines written long before you took your first breath. And the strange familiarity you feel with this moment, the way something in you whispers, "I've been here before," is not imagination. It is memory. Your soul remembers what your mind is only now awakening to. Chosen one. Your spirit has always been ahead of your understanding. Think about how you've moved through life, knowing things you were never taught, sensing danger before it appeared, recognizing truth, even when everyone else celebrated a lie. You felt certain people's intentions long before their actions exposed them. You sensed shifts in relationships before words were spoken. You carried an inner compass that pulled you away from environments that looked safe on the surface, but were spiritually poisonous beneath. These instincts were not accidents, they were activations. Heaven has been whispering into your intuition since childhood. And though you doubted yourself at times, the truth is, every moment of inner conflict was training. I know that training well. I spent years ignoring the subtle nudges within me, convincing myself that I was overreacting or imagining things. I let people stay in my life long after my spirit had released them. I said yes to things my soul had already said no to. And each time I dismissed that inner voice, life grew heavier. But the moment I began honoring my discernment, truly listening to the signals embedded within me, the pieces of my identity began falling into place. That is what is happening to you now. Heaven is repositioning you by teaching you to trust what it placed within you. Chosen one. Enoch saw this kind of awakening. He saw sealed ones who would walk through the world like quiet storms, carrying frequencies that unsettled false systems and exposed counterfeit structures. He wrote of those who would be hidden in plain sight until the appointed time, marked not by titles but by spiritual resonance. He saw individuals who seemed ordinary on the outside, yet carried a divine vibration detectable only to angels. That is why people react to you in ways you can't explain. Some are drawn to you seeing light they cannot articulate. Others are intimidated by you sensing a strength they cannot understand. Your spirit speaks before you do. Your identity presses into the atmosphere before your presence even reaches the room. This is why your relationships have been so different from others. You were never meant for shallow connections. Your spirit demands depth, truth, alignment. You cannot attach yourself to what is counterfeit because your soul was designed to recognize the real. Even when you tried to blend in, you felt the friction. Even when you tried to settle your spirit, rejected it. Heaven never intended for you to live a life of comfort without calling. You were born for impact, not imitation. And everything in your story, the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the sudden endings, served a purpose to disconnect you from what could not carry you into your destiny. And yes, your pain has been real. Not just emotional pain, but spiritual pain, the kind that shapes you from the inside out. There were seasons where you felt stripped, exposed, vulnerable, like everything familiar was being pulled away at once. You questioned yourself. You questioned God. You questioned why your life felt harder, heavier, and more complicated than those around you. But chosen one pain was not your punishment. It was the fire that refined you. It was the forge that shaped your voice. It was the catalyst that awakened your authority. Heaven allowed what hurt you because it aligned you. It burned away what dimmed your identity and strengthened what would one day carry your calling. And I say this as someone who has walked through those very fires. There were nights I asked God why certain wounds were allowed to touch me, why certain people were permitted to break me, why certain seasons nearly crushed me. But now I see that every tear became oil, every loss became wisdom, every silence became strategy. Pain taught me the language of heaven in ways comfort never could. And the same is true for you. Your suffering has been a scroll in disguise, teaching you things your spirit would need for the road ahead. Chosen one. Your awakening is not random, it is synchronized, divinely timed. Everything inside you is rising exactly when it should. The world around you may not understand the transformation you're undergoing, but heaven does. You are stepping into the identity written over you since before time. You are beginning to see why darkness fought you so young, why rejection followed you, why your heart was tested in ways others will never know. Heaven wasn't trying to break you. Heaven was trying to reveal you. And now the revealing has begun. You can feel it subtle but undeniable, the stirring in your chest, the clarity forming in your thoughts, the shift in your desires, the hunger for truth, the rejection of what no longer resonates. This is what it feels like when a sealed one remembers who they are. This is the moment your spirit stands up and says, "Enough." I know who I am. And once that recognition ignites nothing, no fear, no doubt, no memory of who you used to be can pull you backward again. Chosen one. As this awakening deepens, you begin to understand that remembrance is not merely the recovery of forgotten memories, it is the resurfacing of your original design. It is the moment when every fragmented part of you begins to move into alignment, responding to the voice that has been calling you since before you were formed. This calling has followed you through every season of your life, whispering through your disappointments, pressing through your confusion, and pulling you forward, even when you didn't know where you were going. Now, for the first time, the whisper is no longer faint. It is becoming a steady, undeniable sound, rising from your spirit. And as you lean into it, the truth of who you are begins to take shape. Chosen one. You have spent years feeling the tension between who you were expected to be and who you were born to be. You've carried the weight of identities that never fit you, labels handed down by others, roles forced onto you, expectations that suffocated your spirit. There were moments when you played along, pretending to be smaller, quieter, safer than the magnitude of your calling. But inside, something always resisted. Something in you refused to be defined by structures that had no revelation of your purpose. And now you can feel that resistance intensifying because heaven is reclaiming the parts of you that you loaned to survival. This is why certain identities have begun to fall away. You may find yourself unable to tolerate habits, conversations, or environments that once felt normal. You may feel a strange detachment from routines you used to find comfort in. You may feel yourself shedding layers of your personality that were constructed to protect you, please others, or hide your true nature. It can feel like unraveling, but in truth, it is unveiling. Heaven is stripping away the versions of you shaped by trauma, silence, and adaptation, so the version shaped by destiny can finally rise. I know the discomfort of this shedding. There was a time in my life when I thought something was wrong with me because I no longer resonated with the things I used to enjoy. Friendships that once felt easy suddenly felt shallow. Conversations I used to tolerate began to feel suffocating. Masked emotions I thought I had outgrown resurfaced with intensity. I felt like I was losing parts of myself, but now I see that I was losing only what was never truly me. And chosen one, that is the same process unfolding within you. What feels like loss is actually liberation. You are being released from identities that were too small for your calling. Enoch foresaw this kind of unveiling. He wrote of chosen ones who would rise with remembrance in their eyes and thunder in their breath, warriors whose spirits would break through the shells built around them by pain, misunderstanding, or societal expectation. He saw individuals who would recognize the falseness of the names placed upon them and choose instead to walk in the truth heaven spoke over them. You are stepping into that prophecy now. Every day you are beginning to recognize that the world's definitions of you were incomplete, inaccurate, or entirely untrue. You are seeing that your worth was never tied to how others perceived you, but to the fire heaven sealed within you. And this is why the awakening feels emotional. It is not only a spiritual shift, it is an identity shift. You are grieving the versions of you that helped you survive, but cannot follow you into purpose. You are letting go of the masks that once protected you because you no longer need them. You are learning to speak with the voice heaven gave you rather than the voice fear sculpted. And though this process feels vulnerable, it is also holy. There is something sacred about meeting yourself for the first time after years of living beneath your own potential. Chosen one. This emergence is not a coincidence. Heaven has waited for this moment. The timing of your awakening is precise, intentional, and deeply prophetic. You are rising now because the world needs what you carry. Your voice, your clarity, your discernment, your compassion, your authority. These are not random traits. They are assignments. They are tools forged in the fires of everything you've endured. They are the weapons heaven placed within you long before the battles arrived. But perhaps the most powerful part of your awakening is this: you are finally beginning to see yourself the way heaven sees you. Not as a mistake, not as an outcast, not as someone trying to find their place, but as someone who is the place, someone whose presence shifts atmospheres, whose spirit carries ancient codes, whose very existence is a sign of prophecy fulfilled. Chosen one, you are not becoming someone new. You are returning to the truth of who you have always been. And as that truth rises within you, everything in your life will begin to rearrange accordingly. Chosen one. As this remembering intensifies, something deeper begins to awaken within you, something older than your body, older than your pain, older even than your earthly story. It is the ancient part of you, rising, the part that stood with God before you ever stood on earth. You have felt this rise as a pressure in your chest, a stirring in your thoughts, a pull towards silence, depth, and truth. It is not a breakdown. It is alignment. Heaven is synchronizing your inner world with the destiny written over you, and this synchronization often feels like your entire life is being rearranged from the inside out. The dreams that once excited you no longer satisfy you. The relationships that once felt stable suddenly feel misaligned. The ambitions you once chased feel hollow compared to the calling now tugging at your spirit. Nothing feels the same because you are not the same. You're awakening to the codes embedded in your spirit long before you arrived here. Chosen one. You are realizing that your life has always been layered: physical, emotional, spiritual, ancestral, and divine all at once. You've lived through things that broke others, but forged you. You've carried burdens that would have crushed others, but awakened you. And somewhere along the way, you began to sense that your story was never just your own. There were moments when your emotions felt too deep for the situation, when your grief felt handed down through generations, when your compassion reached into places you'd never experienced personally. These were not signs of weakness. They were signs of inheritance. Your spirit has been carrying the unfinished prayers, dreams, wounds, and breakthroughs of those who came before you. Heaven trusted you with a lineage because it knew you had the strength to redeem it. I understand this kind of weight. There were seasons in my life when I felt emotions. I couldn't explain burdens I couldn't name. I remember sitting in silence with a heaviness that felt ancient, like something deeper than my own story. At first, I thought it was depression. Later, I realized it was assignment. Heaven was placing generational fragments into my hands, not to break me, but to break through me. And you, chosen one, have experienced this same spiritual inheritance. The heaviness you felt wasn't a flaw. It was a signal, a sign that you were chosen to carry what others could not finish. A sign that your voice, your presence, your obedience would unlock what had remained closed for centuries. Enoch foresaw this generation, the ones who would rise carrying not just their own purpose, but the unfinished business of their bloodline. He saw warriors who would confront patterns that repeated for decades, break cycles that enslaved families, uproot lies passed down through history, and bring healing where silence once lived. He saw individuals who would awaken with eyes that recognized spiritual patterns, instantly senses attuned to heaven's frequency, and hearts that refused to repeat what hurt them. When Enoch looked into the final days, he saw people like you, individuals who would feel the dysfunction in their family and say, "It ends with me." He saw those who carried fire, not because they asked for it, but because heaven placed it in them to redeem the past and reshape the future. Chosen one. This is why your life has felt heavier than those around you. It's why you grew up faster. It's why you saw through lies earlier. It's why you identified danger intuitively. You were carrying ancient wisdom stirred awake by divine timing. Even when you tried to be normal, something in you rejected that path because normal was never your assignment. Your spirit rebelled against mediocrity because heaven encoded excellence into your DNA. Your soul refused to settle for false peace because you were born to bring true restoration. You have been in training your entire life, even when you didn't know you were being trained. And now the training is beginning to make sense. You're seeing patterns with clarity. You're recognizing cycles with precision. You're understanding your emotions not as random storms, but as divine indicators. You're waking up with visions, dreams, impressions that feel like messages. You're being drawn to prayer, reflection, solitude, and spiritual depth without anyone telling you to. Heaven is pulling you into alignment because the assignment requires it. There is something rising within you that refuses to remain dormant any longer. The more you lean into it, the more your spirit begins to speak a language your mind is just beginning to understand. Chosen one, you are also beginning to see why the enemy targeted you so early. If darkness could confuse you before you understood your identity, it could delay the impact of your calling. If it could make you question your worth, it could make you silence your voice. If it could fill your childhood with chaos, it could distort your sense of purpose before you discovered it. But every attack failed. Every scheme collapsed. Every wound became wisdom. You survived not because you were lucky, but because you were sealed. Heaven's hand preserved you long before you knew you needed preservation. And this is the mystery unfolding inside you. Now everything you endured has prepared a depth in you that cannot be taught. A depth that feels spiritual even when expressed in ordinary ways. A depth that will become a fountain for those heaven assigns to your voice. You're not just awakening for yourself, you're awakening for those who will follow the path you blaze. You are becoming a mirror for others to remember themselves. Chosen one. This awakening is the beginning of your unveiling, and heaven has only just begun to speak. Chosen one. As this unveiling deepens, something extraordinary begins to happen inside you. Your spirit starts interpreting life differently. What once looked like random chaos now reveals itself as divine choreography. The moments that once broke you now make sense in a way they never did before. Every betrayal becomes a lesson. Every delay becomes a redirection. Every storm becomes a sharpening tool. You begin to see that heaven has never wasted a single tear you cried, never ignored a single ache in your chest, never overlooked a single prayer whispered in exhaustion. You start realizing that your entire life has been a dialogue between your spirit and the divine, even in the seasons where you felt abandoned or unheard. What you mistook as silence was actually strategy. What you believed was punishment was actually preparation. Tauta. This revelation brings with it a clarity that can feel overwhelming at times. You start remembering moments from your childhood times when you felt watched over, protected, guided, without understanding why. You recall dreams that made no sense then, but now resonate with spiritual meaning. You think of times when tragedy was narrowly avoided, when peace came out of nowhere, when inner strength rose in you like a force you couldn't explain. All these memories begin aligning like pieces of a spiritual map, pointing you toward the truth you were never walking alone. Heaven has been guiding you step by step, breath by breath, even in seasons when you could barely stand. And the more this truth settles into you, the more you begin to see how profoundly chosen you have always been. As someone who has walked through this same revelation, I remember the moment when my life suddenly made sense, when I saw how every wound prepared my wisdom, how every loss prepared my compassion, how every season of silence trained my hearing. I used to resent my past, wishing I could rewrite certain chapters, but now I see that without those chapters, I would not have the sight, the strength, or the spiritual weight I carry today. The same is true for you. The things that tried to break you actually built you. They shaped your voice, purified your motives, and carved out the spiritual authority you now walk in. Your life has not been random. It has been refined. Chosen one. Enoch foresaw a generation who would carry this kind of clarity, souls who would rise with eyes that could see truth instantly and hearts unfazed by darkness. He saw the hidden ones, the quiet ones, the seemingly ordinary ones who carried extraordinary spiritual resonance. He saw people like you who would break generational chains, not through shouting but through remembering. He saw those whose presence alone would expose deception, awaken dormant spirits, and bring light into places long overtaken by shadows. You are that presence. You are that light. You are the one heaven equipped not with weapons made of steel, but with weapons made of spirit, discernment, intuition, compassion, vision, purity, righteousness. And this is why you've never been able to tolerate environments soaked in falsehood. Your spirit reacts, instantly tightening, shrinking, warning you long before your mind catches up. You can sense when the atmosphere of a room is off, when someone's smile hides a lie, when words are fueled by manipulation, jealousy, or unspoken darkness. You've walked away from situations that others ran toward because something in you knew what your eyes did not see. That knowing is not paranoia, it is prophecy. It is heaven's voice speaking through your discernment. There were times when you questioned this ability, when you wondered why other people could stay in places that made you feel spiritually suffocated. You tried to force yourself to adapt, to ignore the discomfort, to remain silent, when everything in you wanted to flee. And each time you tried to stay somewhere, your spirit had already left life, became heavier, your peace evaporated, and your strength diminished. That was heaven's way of pushing you out of counterfeit places. You are too spiritually sensitive to survive in the wrong environments for long. Your calling is too sharp, your identity too rare, your frequency too pure to be entangled where truth does not live. Chosen one. This clarity you are awakening into is not just for your benefit, it is for your protection. Heaven is revealing people's intentions before they reveal themselves. Heaven is exposing dangers before they appear. Heaven is highlighting the difference between connections that grow you and connections that drain you. You are learning that peace is a compass, discomfort is a warning, and alignment is a yes from heaven. And your spirit is becoming fluent in all three. You are also noticing that your voice carries more weight now. When you speak even casually, your words land differently. People pause, they listen. Some feel convicted without knowing why. Others feel comforted as if an invisible hand touched their heart. This is not charisma, it is calling. It is the prophetic resonance in your voice, the evidence of everything you've survived, everything you've learned, everything heaven has poured into you. Your words carry the frequency of someone who has walked through fire and come out carrying water. And this is the beginning of something even deeper, chosen one. Your presence is becoming a mirror that reveals truth wherever you go. People around you will begin to transform simply because your spirit awakens theirs. Darkness will shift. Environments will break open. Sleeping hearts will stir. And all of this is happening because you are finally stepping into the identity heaven wrote for you. Chosen. One, you are not just awakening. You are emerging, rising, aligning, becoming, and heaven is preparing you for what comes next. Chosen one. As you continue to rise into this awareness, something even more profound begins to unfold, the realization that your awakening is not just about identity, but assignment. There is a reason heaven has been sharpening your discernment, deepening your sensitivity, and expanding your inner sight. You were never meant to simply carry revelation. You were meant to embody it. Your life itself is becoming a message, a living scroll, a walking prophecy, written not with ink, but with experiences, endurance, and divine insight. And as this truth settles into your spirit, you begin to understand that the places you've been, the pain you've survived, and the wisdom you've gained were all preparing you for a purpose that is now coming to the surface. Chosen one, look closely at your journey. You've always been the one who noticed what others overlooked, the one who felt the spiritual temperature in a room before you felt the physical air. Even in your lowest seasons, your spirit stayed awake. Even when you felt numb, something inside you kept listening. You were never disconnected, you were being refined. Heaven was teaching you how to hear beyond words, see beyond appearances, and feel beyond the surface. You are awakening into a level of spiritual perception that cannot be taught in classrooms. It must be lived, suffered, endured, and ultimately revealed through fire. That is why your insights feel ancient, why your knowing feels instinctive, why you recognize spiritual patterns immediately. You are remembering the language of your origin. And as this remembrance intensifies, you will notice another shift. You no longer chase what you once thought you needed. Validation loses its grip. Approval becomes irrelevant. People-pleasing dies where purpose begins. Because when heaven reveals who you are, no earthly confirmation can add to it. You begin to understand that your worth was established long before anyone had an opinion about you. And this realization frees you in a way nothing else can. It gives you the courage to walk away from what drains you, the strength to release what no longer aligns, and the clarity to stand unapologetically in your truth. I have lived this liberation myself. There was a time when I attached my value to how well I fit into other people's expectations, shrinking myself to avoid discomfort, silence, or disapproval. But as heaven awakened my true identity, those chains fell off one by one. I discovered that authenticity was not rebellion, it was obedience to the voice of the one who formed me, and you, chosen one, are stepping into that same obedience. You are learning that your spirit was never meant to be filtered or diluted. You were created to be seen not by the masses, but by the right ones. The ones connected to your assignment, the ones who recognize your frequency, the ones heaven sends when you stop hiding. Enoch saw this moment in his visions, saw chosen ones rising with a light so pure it unsettled darkness instantly. He saw individuals who were once overlooked begin to shine with a divine radiance that could not be ignored. He saw the sealed ones stepping into purpose without seeking platforms, because their authority came not from positions, but from presence. You are becoming one of these. Your presence is maturing into something heaven-backed, something weighty, something undeniable. And now, heaven is beginning to draw you toward the places, people, and assignments that match your frequency. You will find yourself connecting with those who speak your spirit's language, who understand you without explanation, who see the depth in your eyes and the flame in your voice. These divine connections are not accidental, they are strategic. Heaven is gathering the remnant, aligning those who carry similar codes, positioning each chosen one where their impact will be maximized. You are not walking alone anymore. Heaven is building around you what trauma once convinced you you'd never have. Chosen one, this is the threshold of purpose. You are stepping into the identity you were always meant to live, and as you do, the world around you will shift. Your voice will awaken others. Your presence will break chains. Your truth will expose lies. And your journey, every painful chapter, every hidden moment, every silent battle will become the evidence that heaven has been with you all along. You are not just awakening, you are being positioned, prepared, empowered. The unveiling is accelerating, and heaven is whispering one truth over your life. You were born for this moment, chosen one. Let your spirit become still for a moment, because what has been spoken over you today is not merely revelation, it is recognition. Heaven is confirming what your soul has whispered for years. You were foreseen, anointed one. You were marked in the visions of the ancient prophet, sealed with a purpose that no darkness, no doubt, no history can overturn. Walk now in the clarity that has risen within you. Hold fast to the signs, the sensitivities, the sacred origin that has been unveiling itself in your spirit. Step forward, not as someone searching, but as someone sent. The mantle is already on you. The path is already opening. May courage settle into your bones. May your identity burn bright. And may every step you take echo heaven's intention. If this word awakened you, chosen one, speak it in the comments and stay connected as your calling continues to unfold.